Hey everybody, welcome back to the Kitchen Invitations Lunch and Learn Thursdays. So I'm starting to do these on YouTube, which is a lot of fun, and I'm excited to talk about today's topic, which is cooking without labels. So every week though, if you don't know, here on my YouTube channel, I will go live on Thursdays doing a free 10 to 15 minute lunch and learn on any given nutrition topic. So if there's ever something that you want to learn about, make sure to leave it in the comments below so I can add that to my list of topics to address for you. Of course, check out all the other things I have to offer here on YouTube and my website, my podcast, Instagram, so much more. I am loving this whole thing. So, let's dive into cooking without labels. So, what does that really mean and why do it, right? So I thought about the term cooking without labels actually fairly recently. It's something that I do and I have put out in my courses and in my work, but I never had like a three-word like process for it, cooking without labels. And I guess what it really means to me is that we learn to cook in a way that brings us joy and satisfaction, but also nourishes our body. And it's so important that we find a balance of those two because oftentimes we're in a very all or nothing, swinging back and forth state with what we cook and what we eat. And that ultimately puts a lot of us into a restriction binge cycle or even just experiencing tons of guilt and shame over what we eat. And for me, cooking without labels is meant to help you reduce and hopefully eliminate the shame or guilt you might feel in the kitchen. I'll go into that in a little bit. But I wanted to go over a little bit more about why do we want to do this? So, diet culture, if you're not aware of, or maybe you are acutely aware of, is definitely robbing us of joy in the kitchen. It's forcing us to focus more on the calories or the portions or this, that, the other thing, and it takes away our natural ability to learn to cook, to improve our cooking skills, and to enjoy more home cooked meals without stress. And dieting truly just increases that. So, I thought we could also go over a little bit of why again why would we want to cook without labels, why would we want to kick diet culture out of our kitchen, and why would that be of any use for any of us, right? And it is so hindsight there, right? Or foreshadowing. Wow. So number one is that you can decrease or again hopefully eliminate the fear of different foods in your kitchen. So a lot of people have foods, whether it's from a long history of dieting or food rules that you're still battling, or you're telling yourself, like, I can't have carbs, that's a big one, or desserts or things like that. I once worked with somebody, and I've experienced this myself, where I really love baking and I love desserts, but dieting often didn't allow me to do that. And so, if I ever did it, I felt so much shame, and I ended up eating way more than my body even wanted or needed. But I didn't know when I would get it again, so I went, I went for it, right? And it just to feel that restriction of like, I shouldn't bake, I shouldn't do this. And if that's something you love to do or you love to cook and you like to eat certain foods that diet culture is telling you is bad for you, it just again robs you of any chances of joy in the kitchen, and it makes you experience more stress as well when you're cooking and planning your meals. So if we can decrease the fear around foods in the kitchen, and that means we can decrease the stress, which isn't everybody always telling everybody to decrease your stress, manage your stress better. There's so many reasons why that is a much bigger thing than what just hearing somebody say, "Oh, just reduce your stress." Like it's more than that, right? It takes a lot. So, what is another reason why we want to cook without labels? We want to stop shooting on ourselves. We want to feel confident and excited about what we're cooking. And, side note, not every single meal is going to be this like world changing meal, right? They can't all be that. Sometimes a meal for me is a piece of toast wrapped around some lunch meat and a string cheese. For some reason, we're out of sliced cheese, so I'm literally thinking of what I had a little bit ago, and an apple. It didn't blow me out of the water, but it was efficient, it was tasty, and I could move on from it. So, why do we want to not should on ourselves? Shoulds often just make us feel guilty about something that we are going to do anyway or not going to do anyway. So, if we say, like, oh, I should really cook this, or I shouldn't make that, or I shouldn't bake, usually we're still going to do or not do those things. And so we're like pre guilting ourselves about things that we're already going to be doing or not doing. So then we're basing our next moves based off of a downward feeling of guilt, which can start you into the shame, and it can make you swing and pendulum into that all or nothing world of eating where it's like, F it, I'm just going to do whatever I want. And honestly, I do help people cook and do whatever they want in the kitchen. But I understand to a lot of people when you're feeling that pendulum swinging, the assumption is, well, if I allow all foods to be in my kitchen, if I just like lower the reins, I'm going to lose control or I'm going to eat only junk food. And I put that in quotes because I really don't like that term junk food. Um, I'll tell you why in a moment, but if you learn to trust the process of trusting your intuition in the kitchen and removing diet culture away from your kitchen, I just guarantee you it is so much less stressful and it's so much more enjoyable as well. So another reason to cook without labels is we will stop labeling and also stop the cycle of calling foods good and bad. Now, I know it can be really hard because it's such a natural thing to say, like, oh, this is good for your body or this is bad for your body. But honestly, what all that ends up doing is promoting more guilt and shame around food choices. So, for example, I have a 2-year-old son and I'm very, very aware and conscious of making sure that I'm not labeling his food as good or bad. So I try to ask him things like, what did it taste like? And he's 2, his vocabulary is exploding right now, but he doesn't have all the words to describe food. So I like to just tell him what I'm tasting. Oh, this is sweet, this is savory, this is crunchy, this is soft, this is chewy, this is doughy, whatever it is, those more descriptive words are going to serve him and myself, my family, friends around me, anybody so much better. And we are going to have hopefully generations to come of adults or really kids, teens, adults that are not labeling food as good and bad, are not basing their food choices off of these morally, all or nothing again thoughts. Good, bad has no place in the kitchen. It's just not helpful. Again, all it does is push out guilt and shame, and it just decreases our chances of being able to listen to our body in terms of what we need, how much we need, and it again. Why would we want to feel guilty in the kitchen if we can do anything to eliminate that, or yeah, eliminate it really, or reduce it? Like that is definitely a positive thing to work on. So, what does it also mean? It doesn't mean, or what does it not mean, right? Cooking without labels doesn't mean you're going to ignore your health. Like I said, a lot of times when I tell someone, like, let's work on giving you back permission to eat and enjoy and cook all foods, that can be really scary for a lot of people. So it's usually a gradual process. But just because you cook without labels or cook without like a diet plan to follow um, or whatever it is, whatever it is, cooking without labels can still be all about your nutrition and your health. It doesn't mean you're going to abandon health goals. It doesn't mean you can't work toward any health goal with your cooking. It doesn't mean any of that. So, if anything, it means we find a way to bring back the joy, satisfaction, which is such an important part about eating and cooking in general. And it means that we can eat foods again that nourish our body. So it takes a while to get there, but again, it is so worth it. um, Often, it also cooking without labels can make meal planning a lot easier and faster because we're not trying to find a diet recipe. We're not trying to find low this, high that, none of this, none of that. And honestly, I even avoid searching for recipes that use the word healthy. If you go to my website, you'll find I don't use that word for my recipes because truly all food can provide us nourishment and it is healthy to eat. Just period point blank. It is healthy to eat. So when you start seeing things like a healthy spaghetti sauce, I think that starts to get a little bit confusing for people because, well, what's wrong with my spaghetti sauce? Why isn't mine healthy? It instantly can make you start to compare or feel like you're not doing a good enough job in the kitchen or this, that, the other thing. And I do understand. I'm a registered dietitian. There are some different prevention things that I know people are thinking about, or they're in chronic disease and they're thinking about maybe things like carbs or sugar or sodium or fat. That definitely can still be a part of your overall cooking experience, but it doesn't have to overrule everything. I always hated when I was an inpatient dietitian. Actually, no, I wasn't a dietitian, I was an intern. So when I was an intern and I was in an inpatient, like acute care hospital, I would have to be the one to like go to somebody who was in the hospital for a heart attack. And back then I didn't even know my best approach to handling a nutrition referral in an acute care hospital. And I'd go in and try to talk about like a heart healthy diet, and it shuts people down immediately because number one, that's not the appropriate time for education. But number two, we have a lot of preconceived notions about like certain diets like heart healthy or DASH or keto or paleo or intermittent fasting. We have all these preconceived notions about it, and that can shut people down really quickly. Like, okay, yeah, you just like, I'm not gonna be able to eat any of the foods I enjoy anymore, which is so not true. So just know that cooking without labels does not mean we ignore health or that we ignore nutrition. It just means that we do remove the guilt, the shame, the good, the bad, the all or nothing, all these thoughts that can make, again, cooking so much harder for yourself. You may also have more variety. One, because you're allowing all foods to fit in your life, all the ones you want anyway. You don't have to eat foods that you don't enjoy. Like, if you don't like fish, that's okay. You don't have to eat fish. It's not a rule. You also get to, thinking of rules, you get to remove rules from the kitchen. The kitchen doesn't have to close at 6 p.m. You don't have to lock yourself away from the cabinets and feel guilt when you're standing in front of them. So we can get rid of those food rules, again, by cooking without labels. Also, you'll save time in the kitchen if you're cooking without a label, because the diet labels, right? Dieting, that's kind of what we're getting at here. Because a lot of people used to tell me like, oh, I'm really struggling, I'm trying to cook for my family and we all eat differently, and I'm on this and he's on that and she's doing this and I'm doing that. And it's like you're cooking 15 different meals every day, and that's so exhausting. So having a way to all enjoy foods and keep them in your life in a way that fits and works for you all is so time saving and so important too, as far as like bonding over the foods that we all get to eat together. There's a couple more things. Like, one is we'll learn to trust ourselves that we can make pasta. We're not gonna, you know, nothing bad is gonna happen from eating pasta. We're not, like, I say pasta because that's such a big one that like people are like, oh, I can't cook that. I'm like, oh, but it's so cost effective and it's got so much nutrition to offer. But dieting makes us feel like we shouldn't have the pasta or the rice, or a lot of times it is carbs. Carbs get demonized all the time, and they can bring so much satisfaction and nutrition into your day. So just remember they're not off limits. And so again, one last thing to add is that you might even become a better cook. So, when you cook without labels, you can actually learn cooking techniques that help you grow in the kitchen. They help you like establish a better routine in the kitchen. You might improve your knife skills, because sometimes even with dieting, we end up cooking and eating the same things like over and over and over and over and over again. So, I think it's just so important to remember that between all of these different things, cooking without labels can serve you so well. And so, if this is sounding like something that you want to explore further, I just encourage you to start checking out my videos, sign up and subscribe for my YouTube channel. I'll do a free lunch and learn like this every single Thursday. I put out other free content weekly, and there's so much more on my website and with my kitchen VIP community group. So, all of that's in the description below. You can explore it for yourself. you have any questions or topics you want to see in the next Lunch and Learn, let me know. But next week, I will be talking about budgeting protein into your grocery budget because I know that that can be extremely expensive right now and always. So that is next week's topic. And I hope to see you then and have a good one. I'll see you in the kitchen.